hey, like, wake up early, like, start your day early before others do, and your energy levels will, you'll feel a drastic change rather than, going to sleep late, waking up late. But
Yeah, you definitely will when you have a purpose, when you have something like you. I see you like working towards a goal and trying to accomplish things. When you it just starts happening like that when you get excited and motivated.
right,
And when
absolutely,
when you're just like a holding pattern, you're just like, well, I'll sleep in, I'll just get up, whatever, and you don't care. But when you have like something to work at, like you do, like what you're trying to do,
all right.
it's you just get excited about life every day, and the best way to be, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just passionate about what I do because I get to I get to know more about my guests, like, and I'm like seriously like passionate, like I'm not like, oh yeah, here we go, like another story, whatever. I'm
Right.
like super intrigued and I'm like I love it, you know what I mean? Like, you get to meet new people, which is a good thing. Like you have an interesting story. You're in the army for about 4 years or so.
Yeah.
Congrats, thank you for serving the country. I appreciate that. Um, you've been to prison, whatever. But I mean, I'm glad to get into it. Actually, I was actually on your Instagram. I wanted to get into this. I was on your Instagram page, and I saw that all those sneakers, all those Jordans and
Yeah,
stuff
that's what
that you.
I never, man. I never like when I was a little kid. We were so poor, but I didn't know it. It was just me and my mom. She had me when she was like 17, so I didn't know. And we lived out in the sticks, like literally in the middle of nowhere. I'm from East Tennessee. I still live in East Tennessee. I live in Knoxville, but I didn't know. I didn't know we were poor kids. Like I was a poor kid. I was this only child, so it never dawned on me because I recognized early that my mom's working like 60 hours a week just trying to make sure we have food to eat. I don't know how I picked up on it early, but I knew it wasn't a big deal to me. And then we like I just go to school in my little, Walmart clothes, like stuff you
Right,
care about when you're a kid.
right,
And as I got older, like obviously when we moved to we moved from the sticks to the city, and then all that stuff starts to matter and it's important, even though it's not important, but as a kid it is.
right.
And I remember I think I was in no, I was in ninth grade. My mom told me, she was like, "Hey, the Jordan 15s were coming out." That's like a lot of people don't like those, but I like those. It was the and I guess I've been running around the house saying, "Hey, I like these," and she was like, "Okay, cool." And then we were getting ready to go to school, and she was like, "Hey, come on!" And we got in the car, and she turned towards the mall instead of the school, and she went and got them for me, and it was like. I literally, I can still, there's a few days in my life I can remember exactly, and that was one of them. And then it was just like, I was like, okay, cool. And I had those, man. That was the only pair of Jordans I had for a long time. And then
Right.
I just didn't care about shoes because, then that was when I was 15, probably 14, 15. And then once I get 16, 17 years old, I start getting into drug use and doing all that. And then, I'm one of those guys that's like 0 to 100. It's
Right.
what are we doing? Oh, we're going to start doing these drugs. Okay, well, I'm just going to go into be a junkie immediately. Like it's just it's all or nothing, which is good when you have a positive thing to go for, but when it's a negative thing, it gets real bad.
Right.
So fast forward all the way through, go through the army rehabs, all that. I don't. In money is just I don't care about it because that's all just drugs. That's all I see it as. But when I get out of prison, I come home and I have like this whole new perspective, this whole new outlook on life. Like everything's changed. So I'm looking through one day and I seen a couple pairs of shoes and I was like, oh no, I could just feel it because like I like to wear Chucks. I got a Chuck
Oh
Taylor
yeah.
tattoo on my shin. Like Chucks are my thing. And then I saw these Jordan ones. It was the Court Purple 2.0s. It's the purple and white ones. And I was like, holy shit, this is. And my girl bought them for me for my birthday, and it's just been downhill ever since, man.
Right.
I love it. I probably bought 15, 20 pairs. I've ended up selling like 16 of them. It's just kind of like
Wow.
if I can get them for retail, I'll buy them, maybe make a couple bucks on them. But,
Right.
I'm not like stock, I'm not trying to be StockX or anything. I'm really just trying to finance a couple pairs of shoes every now and then for myself. But yeah, the sneaker game's insane, man.
Yeah, that's dope. Do you follow do you know of this dude named Soul Russell?
I probably have seen them because I got into this thing where I was like in all the sneaker groups and all that. Like I followed all of them, but really it's a really toxic community, man. And
Mm-hmm.
I hate the word toxic. It just sounds so cliche, but
And
I
negative,
don't
yeah.
know how to describe it.
Right.
It's like the gaming community, same thing. Everybody's just they're assholes to each other for no reason, or they're trying to get over on each other for no. I don't know. Words
Absolutely.
matter where I live, man.
Right.
and
I,
and the way people talk to each other is just I can't stand it. So I got out of all of it. I just follow a couple guys like that are uh, I guess not big name, but they know their stuff and they get it done.
right. Absolutely. Hey, what do you got planned for the rest of the day, Jarett?
Okay, so today is actually give me 1 second, brother. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you're good.
I've got to open this window. It got so hot in here.
Nah, hey, that actually happens with me too. Like, I'll especially during like the podcast and stuff, it'll
Yeah,
get
you get to
super hot.
talking and get to
Right.
today's the first Saturday that me and my girl have had off together in probably 3 months. So we'll
Wow.
probably just lay around the house, hang out, cook some dinner later on, try to get the garage straightened out. I mean, it's just a normal square life, man. You know what I
Right.
mean? I tell people that all the time. Like, what are you doing? So just being a square, just being an adult.
Right.
This is the longest I've ever been. I'm 36. This is the longest I've ever been an adult, like actually in my entire life. You
Right. Do you
know,
have do you have any kids or siblings?
I have two daughters. I have a 14-year-old, and she lives in Atlanta. She and I don't talk. It was just,
During that whole
sometimes they don't.
process?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they don't.
I
There's nothing
understand.
I could do about it. I made my choices, and it affected her.
Right.
And then I have a 12-year-old, and I actually work with her stepdad sometimes, and so I see her and we do things and we'll talk back and forth. But I mean, she's 12 now, so she knows everything and she can do whatever she wants. And you know how that is when they're
Absolutely.
little girls is terrible.
Do you have
So
any?
I just
Yeah, go for
I mean, it's always been just motion, man. My entire life has just been full speed, full motion, go, 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 go. And then now it's just kind of, I mean, fall into the rut of life, I guess. But now I'm just doing like normal stuff. I'm just a normal, just a
a
normal
normal
old
American,
guy.
right?
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
I'm just
absolutely. Jared, what are some of your goals that you want to achieve in the next couple years, 5, 10 years? Where do you see yourself?
when I was let's see, in 2000, I deployed in 2005. I was like 20 years old. We came home 2006. It was me, my mom, my dad. My mom's an accountant. My dad is a construction. He's a commercial construction superintendent. And one of my army buddies, we started a construction company. I think we made, I think we did like 600 grand in the first 5 months or 800
Oh,
grand in the first 6 months. It got too big too fast. And, I didn't think that was possible. But then, when it's just like any movie you ever see where anybody's got money coming in every direction, you just say, oh, just do this and this, and then boom, it blew up. So I went back to, my bad ways. And then just over life, I've always done construction. I like doing it. It's
right.
something I enjoy doing. So I possibly, like I kind of work for myself now. I work with my brother-in-law, but it's kind of for myself too. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
And I probably just really get in with him. And just do that, just keeping it kind of normal. My biggest goal is just to get my girlfriend owns a haunted attraction,
Okay.
and it's blowing up. Like it last year was just insane. But we've outgrown the space we're in. It's a logistical nightmare. There's no parking. There's no traffic flow. It's just so that's really my biggest goal is just to really help get her. Because
Get her
get her to
going.
that space. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? To find a good property with good logistics and things like that. Because I mean, the business model's there. Um, the the products there, the services there. We just have to get that to its space. I mean, it's one of those things in our area. There's 4 or 5 of them. There's a couple of them that gross 600, 700, $800,000 a year, and they're only open for 6 weeks.
Oh
So
wow.
just trying to help her realize that goal really is because I've dealt with like the higher end money deals and
Mhm.
transactions and things like that. So it doesn't, and I don't care about money. I
So
mean,
you
obviously
can
I want it.
right,
Everybody wants money, but I don't place any value in it because I've seen the dark side of what it can do. So it's not a driving factor for me.
right,
I honestly I've always been that way. If you have a product or a service that is superior and all you need is money to make it go, there's no reason it's not going to go because there's so much money in the world that you can talk anybody out of it, not in a
right.
negative way. But if I come to you and say, hey, you're making 6 points on your $50,000 investment over here, let us use it and I'll give you 14 points in the same amount of time. Well, if you have, $1 million, why would you care?
Absolutely.
So that's really, I mean, that's my biggest goal, just to help her realize her success, her dream. Cause she's insane about it. If she didn't make a dollar doing it, she would do it all the time.
Right.
Whereas I look at it from like the business side of it, she loves it, which is anytime anybody's as passionate about anything like that, even if I'm not into it, I don't like scary stuff. Like I'm not into it at all. Really, she loves it. I mean, our house has got stuff all over it right now,
Right.
like mannequin hands with blood on them, skulls. All I mean, it's just what it is. But she loves it, so I love it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. I feel that, man. That's honestly awesome. That's awesome. You can honestly like so you're basically gonna like kind of mentor her in a way because you've been on that higher platform already. Um and you're just gonna pretty much guide her in
Yeah,
a
maybe.
higher
Yeah, I
directions.
mean, not really like that in that sense, but just kind of like, I guess you would say that because you got
Yeah.
to, navigate it and find all that little stuff. But
Right.
I mean, she's done it all without me the whole time. I just showed up last year in the fifth year and just
Awesome.
tried to help. I ran the
Right.
parking last year. She's incredible.
Awesome. Hey Jarrett, I just want to ask you one thing real quick. Before we actually get into it, I like how you mentioned about the money, how it really doesn't mean anything to you, especially what you've been through your struggles and stuff, and that's where your money was going towards. Uh, this is a question that's been talked about for years and years. Um, it's pretty cliche, but do you think money buys happiness?
No, not at all.
No.
I know so many rich people that are so miserable, and it makes me sound like such an asshole when I say that. I'm not like some big, I'm not like I don't have like the street cred, or I'm not like I didn't come from a rich family, but over my life, I've met so many people with so much more than me because I don't care to talk to anybody. Just like you, we met last week in another guy's comment section, and here we
Right.
are talking. I like to talk. That's all I do. I talk, talk, talk. So I don't care to especially at this age, to step out there and go over the bounds because this is all bonus time for me. I shouldn't even be here like that. So I've met people who I should have never been in the same room with, who have literally 10,000 times as much money as I do and not a tenth of the happiness I have. Now
Right.
it can help you get there, but winning the lottery is not going to make someone happy if they're not
Right.
happy already. It can if they do it correctly, if they make the right steps, but money independently is one of the worst things on the world. You know,
Absolutely.
I say that this is all bonus time is because when I got arrested, I went to prison for bank robbery, 2 bank robberies. Um, the second one, I was on a motorcycle. I wrecked. My helmet broke on the first one. I dropped off. It was an S curve, and I saw like I come around and drop off the edge of the mat, like that.
Right.
And when I did, it hit the other rope. So I did the 5 front flips when I hit. Boom, boom, boom. On the first one, my helmet broke. So then I do 4 more front flips, head, toe, and then slide about 50 feet. Like, you don't walk away from that. I got up and
No.
ran. I was gone, adrenaline and all that. But that's not something you walk away from. And I realized right then, like,
Was it worth it?
right. And so when obviously I'm going to get arrested because the bike's there, they're going to be able to find it. And it's, even if I do get away, I'm done. That's all heard over my head is you're done. You're done. So when I got to jail, it was just, I mean, obviously my body was crushed. I was, a drug addict, so I had to go through all that. But I slept for 5 days. But when I woke up, it was literally like I woke up like a new person. Like, yeah, I got to do this. I got to do all this time now, but I got it. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
So, as crazy as it sounds, is yeah, that was worth it. Me almost dying, it had to happen. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So now it's just like anything in life after this, anything after that, when I was 24 years old, we're all in bonus time from now. So anything I can do now is, a positive thing.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Absolutely. Um, it's crazy because see now, see I get carried away. I don't even really care about the whole aspect of like the whole prison deal. It's just more like, the afterlife, whatever. But it's crazy how money can control a person, especially Americans.
Oh,
How how money's so idolized, and you need money, you need this, you need that. When you can just, if you just have family, if you just have your family and everyone's healthy, I mean that should make you healthy. But yeah, money does allow you to do other things that other people can't, go on vacation and stuff. Um,
that's. I was
but
thinking that too. I was thinking about this morning when you and I had spoke, and I was thinking about, things to talk about it, and I had watched a couple of your previous podcasts with the Spanish cat from up north.
right,
Um, he had wrote a book. I think he was hustling a book out of the back of his car, and
right,
then the one with King Bao. I just, I didn't watch them all because there's several of them, but
yeah,
it's just America as a culture. And I mean, I was in the army. I'm a red, white, and blue guy all the way. You know what I mean?
hell yeah,
And it's not so much like the one with King Bao was real interesting because a lot of the stuff he was saying is like the same way I feel in a lot of ways. But when we've just got to this point where everything's so soft now that if I say something, I'm regarded as this way, whereas he says it, and so two different people are going to regard him two different ways.
absolutely. I
And
see
this
what
is
you're
that's
saying.
something I ran into when I was locked up. Like I was in federal prison. Like I said, I had never been to state prison before. I was arrested and did 5 days in the county. I was arrested 2 years later, did 19 days in the county. 3 years after that, I was arrested and did 9.5 years in federal prison. So there was no transition. There was no, oh, I know how this goes. Or so, I'm 24 years old. I get in there and immediately it's, hey, you're white. What's up, homeboy? All that stuff. That's just the way it is.
Right,
And then that's in jail, it's just whatever. But then when you get to prison, especially with, as I can only speak from the federal side, it's, you're a white guy, you're from Tennessee. Those are the white guys from Tennessee. Go talk to them. Okay, cool. You do all that. Hey, fellas, what's up? It's not a gang thing.
right,
It's not a It's not about. It's just that I mean, it's a race thing because they put us. When I say they, I mean the system says you're not supposed to be anything based on race. But anytime you veer from those lines, the institution will put you back into it.
right.
It's kind of a weird concept to say like how they execute it, but like I, as a white dude, I can't live with a black dude in prison. That's just what it is. I
Right.
mean, I don't make the rules. It's what it is. No,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what? No one cares. And
Mm-hmm.
but you know what? From the time the doors pop and at 6 in the morning, and you come out and not come out, we can sit out there and we can play and be best friends all day long. And then at night, see you, bro. Love you.
Right.
Boom. And then you go back to your spaces. So, but there's always that underlying, not tension, but there's always respect. That's where we've gone as wrong as I think is as a whole is no one respects anybody anymore because their words don't matter. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When I say words matter, you're not going to call me. Nobody's going to come up to me and call me a bitch to my face. Like it's just not going to happen.
Right.
But I'm not going to do that to you either because I respect you as a man or as a woman. But in this sense, as a man, whereas I'm not just going to walk up and say, well, I don't believe in this, and I think you're wrong, and I think you're the devil for thinking that, or I think you're a this phobe, or this ist, or this that, or I'm just not going to do it because I respect how you feel.
Right.
But now it's got to the point where everybody's just overstepping and getting in everybody else's business. It's okay to feel how you feel, but you, like my girlfriend tells me all the time, you can't tell me how to feel. You know what I mean? So you just have all this crazy stuff going on. Like I still don't grasp it. I came home August 6th of 2019. It's the end of February 21 right now. And I'm still, every day I'm blown away by what this country's turned into. It's because I had a Facebook account before 2010, but it was just, you remember back then, it wasn't
right.
omnipresent phones, total takeover of social media. So from 10 to now, everybody had this slow burn kind of where they were just like, social media was just working their way into every aspect of their lives. Whereas when I came home, I walked through the door and it was like, hey, bam, here you go. Oh. This is everything now. Deal with it. Like, okay, cool. And then you have to see things about these people feel this way and this person feels that way and this. Who cares?
Right.
And it all goes back to that quote I hear on Rogan all the time. He says it all the time. He's like, hard times make hard men make easy times, and easy times make soft men. And that's where we're at right now in the cycle. We're at the easy times making soft men. Men and women, everyone. Right. When you don't have to struggle, when you don't have to worry about how am I going to pay my bills, that's when you start getting into, I wonder if baby zebras really like to be called male baby zebras. Like, who gives a fuck? We don't. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to refer to babies as babies now.
Yeah.
You think if that person was worried about feeding their children, they would sit around and think about stuff like that? That doesn't matter, and I know I'm kind of all over the place, but
no, don't worry about it.
There's no reason for people to create their own outrage, and they create their own. I don't want to say victim, but I hate that. Ooh, I fucking hate that. They create their own like pity parties, because if they have no skill set and no value to society, that's the only way to draw any attention to them.
Right.
So I've never seen, like, as far as, obviously I'm I wasn't around in the 50s, 60s, 70s when the actual change was happening, when it mattered,
Right.
But it's just like now people are creating all these problems for no reason, just because they can, and I don't think they see what the long-term consequences are going to be. And It creates both sides. It creates anger on both sides of the issue. And I'm like a pretty conservative guy. I don't give passes to everybody. I don't give passes to all conservatives or Republicans. I judge a man by his merits. I don't care. Like in prison, you kick it with the white guys and you kick it with the black guys, or if you're, whoever you want to kick it with, there's subsects of each of them, Right. But two of my best friends, the entire time I was gone, two of the guys I would go to before I went to the white guys were black dudes. One of them, his name was B Baby, out of New York. He was the shot caller for the Bloods. Been in and out of prison his whole life. He was a drug dealer. It's what he did. And he didn't care. It's just what it was.
Right.
But he was one of the smartest people I've ever met, because he had set the time. He had used his time being locked up to think about life. Like I tell my friends all the time right now, I probably have a 65-year-old man's perspective, because for 10 years, all I thought about is how much I lost and how I won't do that ever again. Whereas most of the time in prison, you can get in there and get caught up in the day-to-day. And that's why, when you see guys who come out of prison, they tell you, they're 44 and they look 29. It's because they had no stress. They didn't worry about anything on the inside. They got in there and they were either just smoking and joking, or just kicking it with the dudes, or just bullshitting around or getting high every day. Absolutely. So if you go to prison for 15 years and come out and look like the same age, you probably didn't have any inner growth. Not everybody,
right?
But most people, because I was stressed out every single day. I went to prison with a full head of hair. I came out and this is what I got now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, right. I felt the overwhelming loss of the amount of time I was going to be gone. My daughter was 18 months old when I left, and I knew every day I thought about she's going to be 10 and a half when I get home. So if you don't use your perspective to think, you can actually regress in prison mentally. You can come out and like a complete moron.
Right.
So B Baby had done that. And now here's this white kid from East Tennessee. And, you know, I grew up listening to rap music and metal and stuff like that. I didn't know anything about anything. Honestly, you know, I'd been overseas. It's funny when you look back at when you're a younger self, you think, how did that kid even survive? But at the time, you know, you felt like you had some awareness. But he and I would talk at length about the big things in life, the bigger picture in life, the what's going on overseas, or why do we do this, or why do we do that? And he would have these, and since he's the shot caller for the Bloods, you know, he's got all these little 19, 20-year-olds coming in, and they're wilding. You know, I just look at them like, boy, you kids, they're crazy.
Oh,
Not in a bad way, crazy like mental, but I mean, like, if he was like, yo, you three right there, go jump off that second tier on top of that guy right there. And they would do it because they were just young. They were Thundercats, you know?
Right.
But what I respected most about him was he knew he had that power and he could literally exercise it at any time for any reason. And he didn't want to more than anything because he knew the negative impact his choice would have on their lives. Absolutely. And he doesn't know these kids. He's from New York. They're from Utah. They're from Miami. They're, you know, these are your people, but they're not your people.
Mm-hmm.
They send you to a different prison. You'll never see them again. You might years down the road your roads might cross paths again, but your choices can impact the rest of his life because he might accidentally kill a guy. He might hit him and him fall and hit his head on the concrete and, he's dead. Now you don't get to go home. So he used restraint when he easily could have, really created problems and done whatever he wanted and made a lot of money doing it, but he didn't. Right. And I saw that for what it was, and he saw that I saw it. So that's why he and I had the mutual respect. You know what I mean?
Right.
And people just don't have respect for one another anymore. You know, it's just like, what? I don't know. I guess it all boils down to easiest for me is words matter, man.
Absolutely.
When I was a kid, when I was in high school, and I went to kind of it's in the city, like the city proper. It's kind of a ghetto school, you know, they'll call it that, but it was hard. Like there were some kids that were in there, especially before I got there. There were some tough dudes in there, and they were smashing heads.
Wow.
And so if you ever heard anybody say the word racist in the 1999 or 2000, that was a big deal.
Right.
Like, oh, he's what? Whereas now you hear the word and you have to say, well, what did he say? Mm-hmm.
How did he say it?
Yeah. It's not, if you said that 20 years ago, it would have been, he's a this, you said, oh, let's go talk to him. But now you have to think, hold on. Did he really say, did he really say that? Or your feelings hurt? Right. That's why I say words matter. You know what I mean? If you cry wolf all the time, you're taking the value out of all the words in the dictionary. You can't just say it all the time because then nobody cares. And once it gets to the point where nobody cares, you can't get anything done because nobody cares. Mm-hmm. Oh, sure it is. Sure they did this. Or sure. Okay, yeah. All right, cool. And they just don't care anymore.
Absolutely.
And so now it's turned into this crazy society. Like, I don't long to go back to prison. I would never say it was the best time of my life. I'll keep it 100 with you. Prison wasn't hard. Federal prison's not hard. It's not fun. If you were a single guy and you had money, like if you had money and you didn't have to worry about that, it's nothing. I mean, just keeping it 100. Prison's hard in the sense of you think about all the things that you lost, that you don't have, like you're missing my daughters grow up, watching my granny get old and me not being there, things like that. Whereas like you see these guys, like that guy we was watching on TikTok, the South Carolina convict guy. Right. He said he'd been in 70 fights in prison. I'm not doubting that one bit because I know guys in the state joint have been in 100. I was in one the whole time. Mm. And I should have never been in that, never, because it was with the black guy.
Right.
And if you talk to guys who have been in the feds, they'll tell you that should never happen because the potential for what it could create, it was this close to turning into a race riot, and I didn't even know it because I was in the middle of it.
Right.
And it literally should have never even happened. Because in the feds, you do 88% of your sentence in the feds. They say 85, but when you don't get good credit for the first year, so it turns it into like 87.3. So if I'm only getting 21 good days a year for my time, and I get, like, I had an 11-year sentence, so I get all those days up front, right? 47, you get 47 days a year. So I get 47 times 11. I get all those good days up front. They're mine to lose. I forget if I get in a fight with you over us arguing over a softball game, DHO took 90 good days from me for that. He took 2 years of good time for me. I was in the shoe for 125 days over a fist fight. I've seen guys stab guys and go to the shoe for 2 weeks. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's all based on where you are and what kind of inmate you've been. Like, when I got in a fight, I was at the low. You don't do that at the low. These are where the good kids are. These are where the guys who are ready to go home. These are for the old cripple guys. This is for the kids who don't cause problems. You want to get down here and have a fist fight? Well, we're going to hammer you.
Right.
124 days locked in a walk-in closet with another man for a fist fight. You know, my mom's walk-in closet is as big as the cell was that I lived in for 124 days.
Wow. Now that's called the shoe, right?
Yeah, in federal prison, it's the shoe. In Texas, they call it the shoe of the state joint.
Okay, shoe in the hole are the same thing, right?
Same thing. Yeah, same
okay.
thing.
I'm glad you mentioned that too, Jarett, about the shoe, because man, there's some of the guests that I've interviewed, they've had buddies, spend shoot.
I saw this. I saw that. Yeah, go ahead. I saw this.
Right. Yeah. Months, and I appreciate you actually watching my videos too. Months, years, like 5 years, and like you said, like your mom's walk-in closet. You know what I mean? It's not that big, and being isolated and being by yourself, I feel like it takes a psychological effect on your whole mindset. And people, I don't know, because I've never been to prison or jail, but it takes a toll, and they come out totally crazy, not the same. So how was that experience? What was that experience like for you?
Before I started my time in McDowell, West Virginia, and I was there for about a year. It was a medium. So, like, I got there, I was a young Thundercat, thinking like it's like a prison movie, thinking I'm going to have to go hammer some dude to get my respect, and just because that's what you see. And in some state places, you might have to do that. In the feds, everybody's like, be cool, get your paperwork. If you're legit, you're fine, you're good. We don't want to fight. We want to go home as fast as possible. So I met guys there, just kind of to touch on what you said. So there was this guy named Kane. He was from Texas. He was old school, like, gangster biker guy, right?
Right.
Like, he had a noose tattooed around his neck, like the whole thing, like with the broken rope, hand tattoos. He rode bikes his whole life. I met him when he was, I think, 55. He had went to the state joint. Now, if you're a gang member in the state of Texas, that's why the gang members in Texas, they don't have tattoos. They don't have gang tattoos. They might have things that are close, but they won't have, like, whatever this gang is on their hand like some groups do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because if I say I go in on a 4 to 6 in Texas and I have whatever gang tattooed on my forearm, oh, you're a confirmed gang member, you're doing your time in the shoe. He did 11 years in the shoe, 23-1, 11 years.
That's insane.
And the reason the prison reform's taken so long to change, and for people to really catch any notice of it, is because it's one of those things that you don't think of unless it affects you. 99.9% of people do not worry about are people in prison being treated unfairly, because they're worrying about paying bills. Whereas and all those same people, all they're thinking at the same time is, well, they wouldn't have arrested them if they didn't do it. Because that's how my mom felt. That's how my granny felt. That's how my aunts felt. That's how my uncles felt. We didn't think about prison because it didn't pertain to us.
Right.
So you go from that mindset to Oh yeah, this is happening. And by the way, did you know a man could be locked in a closet for 11 years straight and never have a roommate, never have a cellie? 20 and it's not like that 1 hour of the day they're letting him go to McDonald's. That 1 hour a day they're letting him from one walk-in closet to another walk-in closet that's twice as big that might have a window in the ceiling so they can get some sunshine on their body. And they don't have AC. He told me how it worked. It's 110 degrees in the cell for 11 years. He
Oh
said
my
he would
God.
he would take his cup and in the middle of the day he would have to take his cup and pour his toilet water on his head just to cool off enough to be and lay in the floor just to be able to bear it. And he did it for 11 years. But
Is
he
that
did it.
is
That's
that
what
legal? Is that even like legal through the whole prison
a guy
system?
there was a class action suit that they filed against Texas a couple of years ago, a few years back, and I think they've changed that now.
Uh-huh.
But that, I mean, that's maybe as of 2016. So
Wow.
from the beginning of time to now, they've been doing it. I've met hundreds of guys who've been in Texas State Prison who've done over a year in there. People are like, well, how do you do it? You don't have any other choice. Like
Right.
you, the human animal is so adaptable. Like you just don't have any other choice but to do it. You know,
Right.
when I first got in the fight and I was in Louisiana, the shoe down there was great. The trays, they would give you so much food on the trays you couldn't eat it all. The food was good. I mean, they
Right.
would give you 6 books at a time. They would give you
Right.
magazines. They would give you newspapers. Now fast forward, I got shipped from Louisiana to Kentucky halfway through my shoe time, and so you go from that shoe ship, and then you put you in the other shoe when you get there, right?
Got
So
you.
you go from that to this one. This one is you're up standing at 6 o'clock in the morning. You're standing next to your bed with your bed made. You get 1 book a week, and you might not get that if you talk to guys across the hall because you can see them. You know, it's like looking like how we are now. You can be like, "Hey man, how you doing?" "Good man, how are you?" Like that type of thing.
Right.
You do that, no rec yard. You're not coming out today. Oh, there's
Really?
a piece of paper in your floor. No rec yard. You're not coming out today. Your bed's not made right. No rec yard. You're not coming out today. And literally, now you're not doing anything. You don't need a whole lot of food. Once you, to be honest, you don't physically need it. And this is six years into being incarcerated, so I get how it works, or 5 years in. And then the tray comes through the window, and it hurts your heart because this is the only food you're getting, and it's nothing. So each thing is different. Texas State being the worst. Some federal spots are good, but you don't have. I don't know how people do it. Like I
Right.
said, that guy Kane, he had like, I think he was going to die in prison. He was in his 50s, and I think he had like 30 years left. But somewhere through his state time, the feds had picked him up. I don't know if it was like a RICO thing or organized crime thing with his gangster or his biker buddies. He didn't care. I remember when he got there, I was there when he got off the bus. He went in the unit, and the next day, and the same thing happened to me when I got to prison. But when he went out on the rec yard, Sid, I can't tell you the amount of appreciation the amount of appreciation he had to be in prison and be outside was like somebody else getting out of prison or somebody else winning the lottery. He was the happiest person. He was one of the happiest people I've ever seen. And he was never going home, and he'd been in prison for 15 years. But now he was somewhere we could walk around. There was sunshine and blue skies because the prison there is on top of a mountain. It's literally one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen, and I've been all over the world.
Right.
And this is a prison, you know what I mean? But from the rec yard, the way they do it, they pick the poorest counties in any area and build a prison so they can inject money into that local economy and it's a way of providing high-paying jobs without having to do shit. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So at McDowell, it's one of the prettiest places I've ever seen in my life. And he was, it's all about perspective. That's what it goes back to what I was saying earlier. His perspective wasn't the same as the guy who's violated 9 times and keeps coming in and bitching about, man, my PO's fucked up, man. That's some bullshit, man. Whereas Kane was, hey, shut up, man. You had 9 tries to go home, and you don't want to go home. You want to be here, so shut up.
Right.
And he would play handball all day and smile. He just smiled all the time, man. And it's like, and that really got, I was young when I met him. I was probably 26. I say young because it was the first part of my prison sentence. Green, I should say. I was like, why is he so happy? And then I got to talking to him, and then I realized what it was. Like, oh, this can be a lot worse than anything you can imagine. And he
Right.
lived it for decades. And I've just kind of taken that whole mentality and translated it to my life of it can always be worse than anything you can even imagine.
Mm.
I've been down pretty low in the bottom of it as compared to some people. And I've also been at the very, pretty high up. But if you don't appreciate it on either aspect, you're bound to go back that way again. If you don't appreciate your success, you're going to fail. If you don't appreciate your failures, you're not ever going to be smart enough to gain your success. So you have to constantly have a love and appreciation of not only life, but what you're trying to do. And if you don't
Absolutely.
care about things, if nothing matters, then who cares? You know,
Absolutely. Man, this is. Hey, I'm just sitting back. You see me go back and forth. I'm just taking notes. I learn a lot. Like, I learn a lot during. That's why I tell my guests. I'm like, you take it away. It's your podcast. It's your interview. Whatever you want to call it. Take it away because I'm learning as well. Um, but that's crazy, man. Um, and you said he was an older dude, right?
yeah, he was in his 50s.
So he's like the old wise, like the wise dude
Yeah.
up in the prison institution. So um now he wasn't. Now how does that work? Was he affiliated with anyone? Was he like his own, like,
No,
did
he
he ride
had
solo?
like all his stuff was like state stuff, right? He was in
Oh,
the
okay.
state of Texas, so that stuff doesn't translate over to the federal prisons, like as far especially with white guys.
Hmm.
So in Tennessee, I don't know where it started. I just know in the Tennessee State Prison, you have a lot of Aryan Nation guys, right?
Hmm.
But a majority of those times with those guys, they just join that so people don't take advantage of them because they're just junkies. They're just junkies in the world and they don't want to get strong armed in prison. And in Tennessee, some prisons you go to, it's 85, 90% black. So what are you going
Hmm.
to do if there's 150 guys in a unit and there's 130 of them are black guys,
Right.
five of them are Spanish, and 14 are white dudes? You
Right.
have no choice but to kind of clan up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's not, things. It's not a race. I don't think anything's a race thing
Hmm.
in my honest opinion. And I saw somebody say this. It's not really a clash of white people are this way or black people are that way. It's literally a cultural thing, in my opinion. Seeing it from all sides of the aspect, seeing it from seeing it from a kind of like a a mixed school growing up, probably 50-50. Then going to the Army and seeing, I have a bunch of black guys I was in there with, but not as many as some places because I'm in Tennessee.
Right.
And then going into prison where it's predominantly black or Latino, or you know what I mean. You know the numbers,
Right.
you've seen them.
Yeah.
Um, but I just really think it's turned more into a cultural thing. So whereas like the Aryan Nation guys, that's a Tennessee state game. You don't come into federal prison talking, oh, I'm Aryan Nation, this or that. Some guys try to, and we've just thought, like, hey, man, just chill. You're just a white dude here, bro. We're not, just chill.
Right.
Because, and a lot of people get that misconstrued. Like I saw that podcast, the one with the Spanish guy. I can't think of his name, man.
Is it Cal?
Is the guy who was hustling books, right, with the glasses?
Yeah, Cal. He's on New York, New Jersey, or New York,
Yeah,
New
yeah, he's
Jersey,
New York, New
whatever.
Jersey. Okay, so that's how my buddy B was the same way. So he's from that area, where he was like he didn't mess with Serranos
Mm-hmm.
because he's Hispanic, they're Hispanic. So why wouldn't you mess with them? Because he was like, well, they mess with the white boys, and that's all silly. That's all survival affiliation type shits. But I understand what he was saying because it's like if I'm Hispanic and you're Hispanic and the white boys get into it with us, you're gonna ride on me. Why would you do that? Like, so I understood where he was coming from when I was, but in federal prison, you really don't have, it's not a gang thing like that. So whereas Kane came through, let me back up. It's all gangs, but it's not gangs. I know that doesn't make sense. Like, but with the black guys,
No, it does.
you have the cars, right? That's what they call them. So you're from California, you're a black dude from California, there's the black California car over there. And you're a white guy from Tennessee, there's the white Tennessee car over there. So, but you have the Bloods, the Crips, the GDs, which there must be 900 million GDs in this world, because every prison I ever went to, they were the biggest one every time. You know, and whoever I left out, you know, no disrespect, right. But there was there was no white gangs in federal prison. Now, if you get up into the USPs, the high level securities, that's where you'll start running into guys like that. And it's more on the West Coast. It's only right. Like the Aryan Brotherhood is the only white gang in prison, but they don't take guys. I mean, they have like Nazi lowriders and they have like all these different little subsects of them, but it's not a gang based thing. Right. It's more of a, you're white, I'm white. The rules say we got to hang out together, so we'll hang out together. 85% of the white guys I met in prison didn't like me. None of them liked me. Right. Because they always said the same thing. Oh, damn, Jarett, you think you're better than everybody. And just, yeah, I do, man. I do. I think I'm better than you because you've been in here 6 years. You've done drugs every day. You call home every week, stressing your mom, your girlfriend, or whoever out, telling them, these guys are going to kill me if you don't send me money just so you get dope money. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm better than you because I read all day. I work out for 2 hours with the other 4 guys I know. And at night, we sit around and have profound discussions like you and I are having now. Right. Whereas you guys sit around and just get high and smoke and pass out and do nothing. I was like,
Jarett, let me get in that real quick. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I apologize. But it's funny you mentioned that up because who did I had a guest on. Oh, I didn't publish it yet. I'm working on it right now. His TikTok name is I'm Jay Black. That's his last name. And it's funny because we were talking about the corruption inside the prisons and stuff and what goes on, whatever. And he's back south. He's from Georgia.
Right.
And he was talking to me about the whole deal. And I mentioned the whole corruption and like what goes on. And he's like, you know what, bro? Like, not only the COs, the COs give whatever, you know, they bring in like the phones and stuff and iPhone chargers, whatever. But the inmates are part of the corruption. They're part of the whole issue. And I really didn't think that through beforehand that he said that. And now that he mentioned that, and I was like, wow, you know what? Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's a business, like it's just a whole business thing. That's just, it's funny because you mentioned that how they, they'll do their drugs inside there, talk on their phones. Now they have phones in prison and stuff. And then like if they don't get it, COs will get blackmailed.
Yeah.
I know where you live. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill your family. And then the COs have no choice. So it's all manipulated, and I just wanted. That's funny that you mentioned that.
Sure,
but
what's crazy about that is that's more. It's funny when you see things about prison, like that state guy, like most of the prison TikToks I've seen are like state guys, right? And I mean, it's literally like Earth and Mars. That's how far apart federal and state prison are in a few areas. I was down for 9.5 years. I never saw one cell phone. Never. Like the one dude was talking about, he had 25, 30 cell phone charges.
Right.
If you were in certain prisons, not all of them in the federal system, if you get caught with a phone, you're getting another 18 to 24 months on your sentence. That's just what it is. And you're going to be in the shoe for about 9 to 12 months until they figure it out, because they know that a phone doesn't magically appear. So they're going to want to play CSI and find out, who did you get the phone from? They start doing the whole investigation, right? So phones were not, I never saw them. But now I was also in rural West Virginia. And then I went from rural West Virginia to central Louisiana. So rural West Virginia, it's all white officers, all white administration. And it was a new joint. So they're strict. A newer a prison is, the worse it is for inmates, because everybody has just got hired. You know what I mean? If you've been doing a job 18 years, you're not worried about nothing because I got 2 years of retirement. But if it's your first year, you're going to be gung ho. So then I go from there to the low in Louisiana, and it was probably 70-30 black to white as far as officer population. So I didn't know of a whole lot of officers bringing stuff into. And the biggest problem with the difference is if you're an officer in a federal prison, prime example, if you're in West Virginia and you're an officer in a federal prison, you went from working whatever bullshit job you had in the area making, if you're lucky, $35,000 a year, right? The federal prison comes in, they hire you to be a turnkey guard. You're going to have full benefits for you and your family, and you're going to make about $68,000 a year. Now, $68,000 a year is good money. Where I live is good money.
Yeah, right.
But it's not the same as where you live.
Right.
But it's not the same as to where West Virginia lives.
Right.
If you have $70,000 there a year, you're in the top 2%.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be impossible for me to go to a guard there and say, hey man, I'll give you $500 if you bring in a pack of smokes or a carton of cigarettes or whatever, right?
Right.
They're gonna be like, no, dummy. No, if I can beat it. So, but whereas in Louisiana, because there's just not a lot of high-paying jobs there. That's why they put those prisons in those places. It's a multi-step process on why they put them there. But West Virginia, very little contraband being brought in. No, it was coming in, but not by the cops. Okay, Louisiana, same thing. Very little being brought in by officers. Then I ended up in Kentucky, same thing. This is a coal mining town, mostly white staff, but it's been there a long time, and everybody's they were a lot cooler because it's been around for 35, 40 years. But there's no other job. Like, I worked in the kitchen for 4 years. I was actually one of 3 guys who worked in the officers' mess hall. And that's literally like that's like me saying I was the CEO of Microsoft. But working in the officers' mess, like, it's the coveted position. So I had to deal with the cops all day, every day at work. I literally would see them and talk to them all day long for years. So it's like even if you don't want to, you're going to build a relationship with somebody that you talk to every day for 5 years.
Right.
So same thing up there. Those cops in there are making $82,000, $83,000 a year. Why would they bring you to stuff? You know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't make sense. Now look at USP Atlanta, middle of the city. They built it back in the day when there was nothing around. It's been there for over 100 years, and now the city has swallowed it up. A majority of the staff is black. When you pull in, that's where you transit. That's when if you get shipped, you go through Atlanta or Oklahoma City. When you pull into Atlanta, you can see the parking lot because you're on the bus. You drive down, you're on the bus. Every car in the parking lot, none of them's older than 3 years old.
Wow.
There's 50% of them are Mercedes. Every one of them's got 22s or bigger on them, because if you get fired in Atlanta for doing something wrong, who cares? There's still other high-paying jobs available in Atlanta, whereas in rural Kentucky, you can't do that. So in Atlanta's going off. I mean, Atlanta's the Wild West. You got phones, you got drugs, you got everything, because it's like, well, I'm making $80,000 a year, but I can go over here and make $82,000 a year with the experience I have. So why wouldn't I let this guy give me $5,000 to bring in a birthday card that's sprayed with synthetic weed?
That's
you know what I'm saying?
Crazy.
It's insane. I know guys who've made hundreds of thousands of dollars selling drugs in prison. Hundreds of thousands. And the amount of drugs you need to do it is very little, bro. Very little.
That is insane.
And
how much, like, I don't know if you mind, give us the rundown on how the pay and what they can bring in, the size amount. If you know.
I see what you're saying. Now, this is something I never got into because it wasn't my thing. Like, I didn't do the only thing you really see in federal prison is Suboxone and synthetic K2, right? It's like the Spice, right? But they make a liquid version of that now.
Oh, okay.
Right? So that's the thing, because they drug test you in federal prison, and you know what happens if you fail a drug test? You lose 3 years of good time. So why would you risk it?
Right.
So this is and I told my mom, I would show my mom this all the time, and she wouldn't believe it, right? So this is from my Xbox, right? This is just like a little thing for
Oh, the
Xbox,
manual. Right.
but it's about the size of a birthday card, right?
Right. Right.
Okay, so just a standard cardboard card, birthday card. You spray it, your homeboy, whoever does it, sprays it with that liquid spice, right? Saturate. There's a process to it, but it's not real hard. It's not as simple as like spraying it and then being done, but it kind
Right.
of is. You're not gonna believe this, Sid. You're not gonna fucking believe this. I'm gonna show you this. You. I promise you, you're not. Because I didn't. I still don't. I still don't believe that it happened. And I'm not putting anybody on blast. Every prison knows what's
Right.
going on.
Yeah. No, you're not. Yeah.
It's almost so small you can't see it, Sid.
Wow.
Right? Where's my camera? Okay, right there,
Right
right?
there. Yeah, I see it. That's
So
crazy.
that's how much is out of this card, right?
Right.
This is the whole sheet. This is where it came from. This right here is a giant piece. Most pieces are not this size. This is a giant piece. I would charge you $10. You would pay me $10 for this.
That is insane.
How many of those do you think you can get out of this? One birthday card.
Oh, at least I'd say at least like 600, 500, 600.
500, 600, maybe 700. Maybe the guy's kind of, trying to make a move. He's just stingy. I'm going to cut him a little smaller and get 750 pieces out of it. $75,000 out of a birthday card. I mean, that's the incentive. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense to me, but that's why guys do it, I mean, I'm not kidding you, man. Because in federal prison, you meet guys who are, I mean, I'm an armed bank robber, right? So I'm not like the lowest of the low, but on the totem pole, I'm down there, right? Possession, they've turned federal prison into an immigration holding facility. That's what they've done. That in a state prison. Federal prison is overpopulated by, I think, 40%, 40 to 60%, because they made 922G, felon in possession of a firearm, a federal crime now. That's a state crime. That's not a federal crime, but they've made it now. And immigration, coming across the border. If they catch you, they send you to federal prison. If you've done it, if you've done it multiple times, they send you to prison, right? That's why there's such an influx of Hispanics in federal prison. And that's why when you talk to guys who did prison time way back in the day, their stories don't sound like mine, because it's polar opposite, because they had more money back then, because they weren't locking up everybody and sending them to the feds. Back then, if you went to the feds, you had to do something, right? Whereas now it's just a bunch of junkies and illegal immigration guys. Now you still have gangsters in there, but they're the minority now. As far as I met several guys in prison that were multimillionaires. I mean, I met several guys in prison who've killed. I know 5 or 6 guys who've killed 10, 12 people.
Wow.
But it's its own. It has kind of a hierarchical. Getting back to this, we've kind of let me circle back.
Don't worry about it. You're good.
Like you were talking about with Kane and him being a gangster. There's kind of a hierarchy, but most of it's based on age, as far as like, if you're not on a West Coast yard, all the yards out there where you're at, the West Coast federal prison yards, are all 100% clamped down, gang ran, all of them.
You said federal, right?
Yeah, federal
Okay.
yards. Whereas on the East Coast, it's not like that. You're not going to see a 28, 29, 32-year-old guy of any race running an entire yard on the East Coast. You know what I mean? It just doesn't happen. You'll see an old head who's kind of running things through different ways, but it's not the same, right? So with the feds, it's more based on A, who you are in prison, and B, if you're an older guy and you carry yourself right, you'll get respect from everybody. Like there's a couple guys I met in there. So going back to early on in West Virginia, this is just a funny story. I mean, it doesn't really have a.
No, don't worry about it.
West Virginia, I get there. I'll never forget. It took me 15 months to get to federal prison, going from county jails and doing my case and all that, right? So county jails, when I got arrested, I was 205 pounds. By the time I got to federal prison 15 months later, I was 160 pounds. That's the kind of food you're getting. That's how you're living in prison, in jail, county jail. So when I got there, the first day I got there, we got there on a Wednesday. It was late. It was like 7 o'clock. We had like a little spaghetti dinner, whatever. They had to put it in like a styrofoam box. Okay, cool. Next morning we get up, go to the chow hall. I've never been to a prison chow hall. I've only been in jail this whole time. I go in. They're like, you go through, you get your little breakfast cake and your milk and your apple or whatever. It's small breakfast. And they're like, man, I like some milk. Dude points over. Those little flip top coolers we had in elementary school with the milk
Yeah,
in them?
I know what you're talking about.
That's what they have over there, right? He's like, it's over there. I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, just go get as many milks as you want. Like, what do you mean? I can have as many as I want. He's like, just fucking go get it. I'm okay. Yeah, okay, cool. So, my mind's already blown. First time they open the yard, I go outside. Like I said, it's 70-something degrees, crystal blue sky. We're literally on top of a mountain, so it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, right? And we're out there throwing softball back and forth. Like, it just feels so good. It's literally like you're free, because you can move and breathe and relax and everything doesn't stink. And so
Right.
we go to lunch. And it's Thursday. I'm sure you've heard fried chicken day in the feds. It's every Thursday. Chicken on the bone, leg quarters. We'll go through. They give me 2 fried leg quarters and a piece of Oreo cheesecake. Sid, when I tell you, I've never in my life had anything better my whole life to that point. And I'm thinking, and I kept asking my partner, I turned and looked at him. He was just like, he was watching me because he had been there for a while and he'd been locked up a long time, and he was watching me, and I'm like this. And I was like, are we supposed to be in trouble? Like, this is what being in trouble is? And he's like, shut the fuck up, right? Like, you're an idiot. I'm like, all right, man. So I just, I'm goofing. I'm feeling good physically, and life's good. So you start seeing these guys that have been there, and I see this old white hair guy, right? And also, too, this is something that is really, that I noticed early on. I really thought about a lot over the years. So in jail, you wear a jumpsuit. You wear the jumpsuit, right? The black and white stripes or pink or orange jumpsuits. You feel like a prisoner. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, okay, so now fast forward. You go to the feds. You wake up in the morning. You put a white T-shirt on. You have either a long sleeve or a short sleeve button-up collared shirt, right? A khaki collared shirt, but it has a collar. You put your khakis on. You have to wear a belt. That's part. You have to. It's not up for debate. You're wearing a belt, so you put a belt on. You put your boots on. It makes you start feeling human again. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're not wearing Jackie Chan sandals and a pinstripe jumpsuit. You're wearing real clothes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so once you get in prison, you don't see people. We all wear the same things with some variation. You might have a long sleeve. I have a short, or he might have his gym clothes on, basketball shorts and a T-shirt. Especially when we're dressed like that, you start forgetting that you're in prison. You always know you are, but your world is as big as you make it. And when your world is shrunk down to what you have right there, that's when you can change the way you think. You know what I mean? Because you adopt the mentality of, I have to be this way because this is where I am. So I can either get in here and wreck shit, I can learn from this, or I can do absolutely nothing and continue my loser path. So once you get up, you're wearing khakis. You don't want to lay around and look like you're all wrinkly, because you guys will make fun of you. If your clothes are wrinkly, they'll make fun of you. So you iron your clothes. I mean, these are little things that they play a bigger picture, but no one really thinks about. You start normalizing your reality. So if we're all wearing khakis, or we're all wearing gym shorts and a T-shirt and gym shoes, I'm not thinking, oh, this guy's in prison for this, or I wonder what that guy's in prison for. He's just a guy. You're just a guy. I'm just a guy. You get away from that. So where sometimes you meet new guys in prison and you find out what they did, and it's shocking because you wouldn't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
I mean, how the fuck am I in the same place with this guy? I would never do that. Like, you start and get this better than you attitude. You can. I'm not saying everybody does. Very few people do, if ever. But it's just this constant reality check that you get slammed into unknowingly all the time. Like, I met this guy his name was Tick, and I mean, Tick wouldn't care if I told this story. He's one of the best guys I've ever known. Played soccer with the Spanish guys. He spoke Spanish. He was in his 30s. I mean, very likable guy. And he played all the sports with us. He's a white dude. Played all the sports with us. That's all you do in prison is play sports. White dudes play sports. And I remember one day after a couple months of being there, I asked somebody, like, damn, man, Tick's such a good guy, because he was genuinely happy and he genuinely cared for others, right? This is what I know because I took the time to get to know him. That's who he was. Now, I said, damn, man, when's Tick going home? We're at the lunch table. And the dude started laughing. He was like, Tick's not going home, man.
Wow.
What do you mean? He was like, Tick has 3 life sentences. Tick killed 5 people when he was 18. Oh. But that's what you never know, because you don't wear a sign around your neck saying I killed 5 people, or I robbed 2 banks, or I did this, or I did that. That's not how it goes. So, you know, the biggest thing I took away from that was, regardless of your past, regardless of what you did, regardless of the environment you're in, you can be somebody.
Absolutely.
Now, you can change people's lives for the better. You can make people's lives better. I really appreciate you having me on here. I would love for your podcast to grow and continue and be just as big as Joe Rogan's. But even if it doesn't, that doesn't make you invalid. That doesn't make your dream invalid. That doesn't make what you are wanting to do any less important as what he's doing, because who knows, talking to people like you do may end up changing someone's life and helping them avoid all these things that all your guests have went through. You know, people get caught up in the scale of things, like, if I don't have $1 million, I'm not successful. If I don't have an Audi R8, I failed. Who gives a fuck? I drive a GMC work van, you know, that's got my tools and, you know, 2 or 3 Taco Bell bags in it, and I could care less. You know, there was a time I had a brand new truck every year. I wasn't happier then than I am now. It's all about perspective, you know, and that's what I learned from those old heads. Like Tick, same thing. He wasn't resigned to his fate, but he had accepted his fate.
Right.
And he made the best out of a terrible situation. The man I met when he was 33 was not the same kid who killed those people when he was 18. Now, do I think he should be in prison for the rest of his life? Yeah, I mean, that's just the way it works, man. You know, if you take somebody off the board, you got to replace them. That's just the way it is. But he didn't let that turn him into a mean, angry person, you know, because I met guys like that. I wanted to bring this up on here because this is a really important
Lay it on,
my buddy Kenny, same thing. First off, when I got to prison, I didn't know what I was doing. There was a white guy named Bam, and he was like, "Hey, young buck, I see you all over the place talking to everybody. You kind of need to reel it in a little bit, just because you talk too much. You know, you don't want to be the chatty guy in prison, because it can turn into a thing." He's like, he asked me where I'd been. Nowhere. What'd you do? This, what? Okay. He took me under his wing and he showed me how it happened. You know, he showed me how it went. And he was instrumental in my path going the way it went. So he actually ended up living about 3 miles away from me, and we never knew it in the real world. We had never met, and then we had somehow met in prison in West Virginia. But so he says, just go with me and let me show you how this works, man. And this issue came up, and somebody had questioned my paperwork because I had questioned another kid, right? B Baby, my black buddy from New York.
Right.
He told me, he said, "Yo, man, there's a child molester on this yard. It's a white dude. I couldn't see him really well, but I know it's him." This is after I became good friends with him. Right now, that's a no-no. You've heard it too much. That is a no-go, right?
Right.
So B Baby tells me this. Now, also too, this is more complex because a black guy accusing a white guy of something, and then somebody acting on the information, if it's wrong, it turns into a thing real quick, right?
Right.
But I say, yo, B baby, you're sure? Yes, I'm sure. You're positive? Yes. I said, I'm gonna take it to the dudes because my buddy Bam ran the yard. I said, I'm gonna take it to the dudes. And if something happens and it's not legit, there's a real good chance that I'm gonna have a real big problem. He was like, on my word. He's like, I'm on my word, son. I'm like, okay. So I go tell my big homies, right? Now, they live in this dorm, we live in this dorm. You have Memphis Mike and Bam across the way, and then me and my buddies over here. This new kid had showed up. He's 20 years old, acne, and he looks like he's 13. We're sitting there talking, and I was like, oh, yeah, by the way, we're at the lunch tables, right? It's a square, long tables like that.
Right.
I look over, and I'm like, yo, B-Baby told me there was this white guy in the yard as a chomo. Said this and this and this. And I see the kid right here in the corner of my eye, right? And when I say it, he doesn't move, he doesn't change anything, but his neck goes red, right? I see it running up his face. I was like, and the only reason it bothered me was because Bam had taken this kid under his wing, and he actually lived in the same unit with Bam, meaning like he was really trying to, make this kid successful, and this kid had lied to him, right? And it hurt me because I know I was going to have to hurt Bam by telling him this. Right. And Bam was a bad motherfucker, dude. I would not want to fight him at all, but he was a really nice guy, but he could be bad, So I go to Memphis Mike and this other guy, and I tell them, hey man, I think it's that kid. Don't tell Bam, y'all figure it out over there, right? And they, immediately they're mad because they like this kid too. I said, look, man, I believe this dude over here more than I believe this. I believe this black dude over here more than I believe this little white kid who's. So we go through the process. I make the formal accusation, I guess you would say. Now, where I've done that, if I say, yo, you did this. Now, when the paperwork comes back, it's my responsibility to take care of it because I made the allegation, right? I put a bone on somebody. It's my job to carry it through. So paperwork comes back. The dude sneaks out of the unit. Like they popped the doors at 6 a.m. He ran straight to the cop's desk. Like he ran straight behind it. So they come and get him, whatever. And Bam was mad at me. Right. And I was like, I'm sorry, man, but it was the right thing to do.
Right.
And and he knew that. He knew it was the right thing to do, but it hurt him, because it was his little buddy, which I understand. I've been tricked like that too. But then somebody had questioned it as to, well, why did this guy say this? And Bam told me I didn't need paperwork when I got there. He said, well, why did he say this and not have his paperwork? Maybe he's fucked up right now. So that's a big deal. And now I'm 25 too. I don't know any better. I think I've got to Hulk smash everybody and make my bones and be, to get the street cred. So when it comes back and I hear that, I said, whoever told me that, have him meet me outside. And Bam's like, I'll take care of it. I'm like, no. And I get all worked up. And he's like, he checks me. He was like, shut up. I'll take care of it. I'm like, okay, you're right. My bad. So we go through. And then, Bam pulls me over and sets me down. He was like, hey, man. He's like, I'm not saying that you're a tough guy or you're trying to be. He said, but you could very easily go down that road and your life will be dramatically different if you do in this environment. Because these guys don't fight most of the time. They stab. And these guys don't care if you go home because they're not. He said, so leave that tough guy shit alone unless you have to. And then if you have to, be the toughest motherfucker in the room, And I took that to heart early on. And I always appreciated Bam for, he could have easily turned me into a Rottweiler that he could have turned me into a cruise missile. He could have pointed me at whoever and I would have been boom right at him, just like B-Baby could have done with those young black guys. You can destroy people without doing anything. You know what I'm saying? Like he could have led me. So that's why like the older white guys or the older guys in the prisons, most of them, not all of them, and you can tell immediately on day one just by physically looking at them if they have their shit together, Right. And so Bam was like in his 30s, but he was considered an old head. Kane was in his 50s, but he was a legit old head. I met, I used to always call him Kung Fu Kenny, but his real name was just Kenny. I don't know his last name. He was from Bar Harbor, Massachusetts, or as they say, Bar Harbor. Like he had that kind of accent, right?
Right.
And every day I used to see him. I'd go out 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. He would be on the yard doing Tai Chi, right? You know, the slow, like the katas with
Yeah.
the breathing. He just had such like this inner peace, and it was so strong. And I mean, this guy's like 71 years old, a bald head, you know, tattoos all over him. And I would talk to him, and he was a really nice older guy. And one day, you know, you don't just walk up to somebody and be like, "Hey, what are you in for?" Like, you don't do that. You know, maybe a kid like my age, but not an old head, you know. But once they, you know, have your respect and trust, they'll, you know, one day it might come up. You don't never ask. So me and Bam are walking one day, because in prison you just walk the track. It's a 1/4 mile track, like at high schools. They have them on every rec yard. You'll just walk the track just because, you know, getting exercise and just moving, talking, whatever. We were all walking together, and it somehow came up what Kenny had done, right? And this is an example of how older guys failed a young guy and ruined his life by having power. You know what I'm saying? Like how
Right.
Bam and B Baby didn't fail us. These guys failed Kenny. Kenny went to federal prison in 1975 on a 3 to 5. This is back when they used to have parole in federal prison, right? Mind you, this is 2012 when I meet Kenny. Kenny went to federal prison in 1975 on a 3 to 5, and I'm meeting him in 2012. So he gets locked up. They send him. He's like a Massachusetts kid, but they send him out west, right?
Right.
Anytime you go out west, that means California. Like I said, California, especially in the 70s, Aryan Brotherhood ran it, had it on. Those guys are a different animal. Like, they have the amount of, like, they take that shit so serious, man. Like, it's insane. It scares me, and I'm a white guy. You know what I mean? Like, it makes me fucking nervous.
Right.
So they go out there. Some allegations come up. Since he's so young, he's in his early 20s back then, right? Since he's so young, you automatically go to the USP. If you're under 25, you're going to USP. And that's not where you want to be at under 25, because those are where the Thundercats are.
Right.
And if you don't have a brain on you, you will easily turn into a Thundercat and never go home. So he gets out there. One of those guys puts him under his wing. They start doing their thing or whatever. Something happens. They're like, "Yo, we're going to go hit this dude up." Kenny, same thing. Just like this easily could have been me 40 years earlier. He's a hard-charging youngster. Let's get him. They catch this dude in between like Sally ports, right? With the closing gates, you know, like this. Like,
right.
They catch him like in here.
Absolutely.
They stab him to pieces, right? So when the cops come around the corner, and this is kind of graphic. Should I finish it?
Go for it. Yeah, okay. Go for it.
So when the cops come around the corner, Kenny is actively trying to saw this guy's head off of his shoulders. He's literally trying to take this guy's head off with a prison knife, a shank. So the cop's like, "Get off of him, get off of him." And he's like, and he turned and looked at me, and he kind of had, like, you know, like old guys with bad teeth, they kind of get like that jack-o'-lantern smile.
Yeah.
Like, you know? He said he turned and looked at the cop and was like, "I'm not done with him yet." Like, he was like literally going for it, trying to, right? So boom. You catch a ton of time for that, obviously. They caught you red-handed, literally red-handed.
Right.
So when I met Kenny, this is in 2012, he was just now finishing. So when I met him in 2012, he had just finished all his other time. He had one more charge to do. He had just started a fresh 240-month sentence, 20-year sentence, when I met him in 2012. He went in on a 3 to 5. Because the old heads failed him. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, that's how prison can be. But same thing. At one time, he was regarded as one of the baddest dudes in America in the prison system because he didn't care. But fast forward into the 90s, he meets his niece. He'd never seen her before. She's a little 8-year-old. It might have been his great niece, because his niece brought her daughter. I don't know how that shit works.
Yeah, you're good.
She brings his niece brings her 8-year-old daughter to visit. Here's this tough tattooed gangster guy, like hardcore guy. And because I asked him, because this is not the same guy that did all that. I said, "Kenny, what changed?" He said, "My niece brings this little girl. She comes into the visit room. I've never met her. I've seen pictures of her. I've never met her one time, never spoken to her. she runs up to me. When they get there, she runs in the door, and I kneel down. She jumps into my arms and says, "I love you, Uncle Kenny." He said, "It was it. It was over." He said, "I felt every bit of hate and anger and violence." He said, "Never again have I ever done anything after that day." And when I say my mind was just like, because I get it, not on that level, but I've had moments like that where enough is enough, and it just takes that one thing to say, not today, man. We're not doing it anymore, but I'm not saying Kenny was a good guy. I mean, I liked him. He was very nice to me, a very cordial old man. He was in his 70s, obviously had a horrific past, but his life didn't have to be like that. If somebody would have taken the time to say, "Hey, let's do something different. Let's go play handball instead of, chop this guy's head off." Like, you don't have to. And it's just so crazy, man. So that's just my buddy Kenny. I think about him all the time to this day. And like, my biggest motivator is and I have a couple of really good buddies who have gotten out before me. I have two cellies that got out before me, and I would always try to impart like this way of thinking on them. Like, I would make them stop being little idiot runarounds and not make them, but show them, "Hey, man, this is bigger than that." Right? I have this one celly, Glenn from Michigan. He makes $30 an hour. He's about to get married. He has a renewed relationship with his daughter. He has perspective on life and all that. And when I met him, he was just a tattoo kid who was a goofball, right? And I'm like, "Glenn, you don't have to buy into this prison culture, because in prison it's like a music video. Prison's the same thing as a music video, man, for real. Everybody's trying to get money and I got this bitch that does this, and I got this hoe that does that, and it's not real."
Right.
And I try to tell him, like, "Yo, Glenn, this is what matters, man. Bring it in." And now he's doing. I mean, he's fantastic, and that's the way. Like, so what I'm saying is, like, all those guys who I know won't come home, who I know can't come home or will never come home, and I told him this too when the day he left. I said, "You got to go out there and make it for them, man. Right. Even if it gets hard, and you think I can't do this shit anymore, and you get past that point of fuck it, I don't care. I'm gonna drink or smoke or do pills because I don't care." It's not up to you, man. It's not for you. It's for those old heads who kept you from crashing out when you were young, or it's for that guy who stepped in and fought that other guy when you were about to go, and he just hit him for no reason so you wouldn't have to do it. I said, there's guys that deserve to go home that will never go home, and they will die in here an old man. So we have to do it for them, and that's what I try to tell them, and I think about those guys all the time. I think about Chino. I think about Bam. I think about Kenny. I think about all those old guys, those guys that I met, over the years, who are not going to make it,
Wow.
But I get to. So what do I look like given this opportunity? Because I saw the old heads, how they would treat those guys when they came back. They wouldn't hit them or hurt. They wouldn't do that. They would just look at them with such a
dishonest,
how could you, man? Right. You had that chance. You were home. Why did you do that?
Right.
Why? They just have such contempt, and it just broke their heart because they know they're not ever going to get that shot, and that's so when it gets to the point of you're at the bottom and you're about to do something really stupid, which I haven't got to that point yet, but I've been close. You can always fall back on that. Like, you have to do it if it gets past do it for my family, do it for this. If you make it through all those levels of doing it for something, do it for those old guys who saved, back in the day.
Right. Because they can't go home.
They can't go home.
So
and a lot of them, those guys have been there forever. They can't go home. Nobody answers the phone when they call. Nobody sends them money. When you go to prison, you die. That's what people don't understand. When you're in prison, like, this is the biggest transition for me was I went to prison. I don't remember the date. June 23rd of 2010. No, June 10th, 2010. My world stopped. Every reference I had, every anywhere I've ever been, any concept of what's going on in the world, it all stopped at June 10th, 2010. I literally froze in space right there. And that's why when guys get out, they acted like when they got locked up, because there's nothing in jail to make you mature. You worry about